So I just came across this clip on Twitter that I think is from a podcast. Not really sure, but it's an interesting clip to kind of sum up the difference between people who have tons of money and everybody else. Because inflation, obviously, we know ran rampant. Costs of everything went skyrocketing. People couldn't afford normal things they used to be able to. But in this interview, I think it's Bill Maher. I think he's in there. He's been on political things on both sides, I think, but he has a different perspective from how everything looks economically than the rest of the entire country or world, even, just because he has a lot more money than everybody else.
But isn't it amazing to you? Like it was in the paper today about this country came out of the pandemic way better. We won the pandemic economically. I mean, America.
Did? God, I don't feel that way. Explain it to me. I feel like inflation's insane.
Inflation is not insane.
So this is something that I feel like is basically, if you say inflation's not insane and prices haven't gone insane, then you just simply have more money or enough money to not feel the effects of that, right? Like Elon Musk, the billionaires, I think his net worth is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. You're not going to realize if your grocery bill went from $300 to $400, right, a month. You're not going to realize that. But for everybody else, if your bill goes up $100 a month, you're going to realize it. You're going to feel it, and now you're going to be pinching pennies other places to try and make up for that. So I think that this is just like the common thing here where everyone who is in government and the Fed, all these guys looking at all these numbers saying, oh, this is great. The stock market's at all-time highs. Everyone's got this money. It's so great. Inflation is down. Even though what they don't say is that even though inflation is down, it's still inflating. Prices are still going up, just a little bit slower than they were before. So when they say inflation's down, it's not deflation. Prices aren't coming down. They're still going up, just not as fast.
Go buy a car.
There's numbers. I understand things,
A house
but it has
tripled here.
Look, I get that.
And she does a good job of pushing back on this, right? With those are major purchases, but yeah, cars more expensive, housing extremely expensive, to the point where there are people saying like they've just given up on ever trying to own a house. So to say inflation, that's nothing. We've come out so much stronger, and the economy's so great, and everyone's just got so much money. No, that's not true. Especially when it's like 45% of Americans don't have investable assets. So that asset bubble that went up during the pandemic that made people more money, the stock market is at all-time highs even right now. It just recently hit all-time highs. Most people aren't really enjoying that. Most people don't have the option to enjoy that. But she goes on even further and brings up like eggs and stuff, because it's just everything has just gotten way more expensive.
Buy some fucking eggs. Explain it to me. I'm not an economist.
There's feelings, and then there's the numbers.
Okay, what are the numbers?
The numbers have come down a lot in the last 6 months.
Okay.
Of course, it was inevitable when we gave out $6 trillion so that everybody could hide under the bed from the forever flu. That was never going to end well.
So obviously talking here saying, oh, we got to separate feelings and the numbers. Well, the numbers people talk positively about, but if you actually look into the numbers, they're not good. Like the labor numbers and stuff coming out saying, oh, we've got so many more jobs coming in. But you look into the numbers, it's a loss of full-time jobs and a gain of part-time jobs. Meaning people are taking on 2-3 part-time jobs just to make the same amount of money so that they can get by every month. That is not successful. That is not a good economy. That is not signs of good things going on. That is signs of people struggling and not being able to make ends meet, right? And being someone who is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, sitting up there and saying, oh, God, I don't care how you feel. Look at the numbers. Look at all the jobs we're adding. Don't look into the jobs, but just look at the number. Like, if you're going to say numbers, you have to be able to actually go into those numbers and talk about them, not just say that they're good. Because now, even though you're saying don't do the feelings, you're just saying your feelings are more important somehow. As well as here where he's saying like, oh, inflation's come down. Again, I'll make the same point. Sure, inflation has come down. It's still inflating. It's not deflation, because they will do everything and anything at all means necessary to keep inflation going. They are not going to allow prices to come down, because that's somehow bad in the eyes of their economic system. But like inflation is still here. It's still going up. We got the recent report. It's higher now. It's over 3% again. It's above expectations again. So, inflation's not going down. It's actually going up a little bit right now, but ultimately, it's never going to come down in terms of prices going lower. That's not going to happen because it's just simply not allowed to happen. They want inflation to spur growth, but you just make everything more and more expensive over time. And we're getting to this point where it's like, how much more expensive can things get before this whole thing just breaks and people can't afford to buy anything?
Taken by the richest people ever and didn't get where it needed to go.
A lot of it was stolen. It was. We agree on that too. It was like, was there some response needed? Of course, you don't want the hospitals overrun, but it was just a massive overreaction, and that did cause some of the inflation.
And he ends it here talking about the stimulus bills. I think basically like $6 trillion. I think it was more than. I think it was like 11 or 12 trillion. Well, let's say $6 trillion. Yeah, here's the problem with that. You say, oh, we printed this money, and that's for some of the inflation. No, it's for the inflation. Like when you print 50% of all dollars that have ever existed in the entirety existence of the dollar in 1 year, you're going to get some massive inflation. And economists said, no, we are so smart. We're not going to get inflation. We're so smart. And they were wrong. And economists are always wrong. They're never right. Somehow they can continuously be wrong, and not ever get questioned. But this $6 trillion in spending, no one looks at it and says, okay, they spent $6 trillion. They gave us, me and you, $1,400 or whatever the stimulus thing was, and then told you to be quiet, and we're going to send this money wherever we want. And everyone was quiet because they didn't even think about the effects later on. They had the $1,400. Everyone was feeling great, spent all that money, and now prices are exploding. Prices are sky high, cost of living exploding, and it's because they printed all this money out of thin air for no reason, gave you $1,400, told you to be quiet, and you were. And we all just sat there, and some people on Twitter, Bitcoin Twitter specifically, were saying this is going to cause major problems. The Economist said, those morons, they internet magic money, they don't know what they're talking about. And then look who was right and who was wrong, and decide who you want to actually look into what's going on with. But yeah, that was a clip that I saw. I thought it was interesting to just see, obviously, someone who has hundreds of millions of dollars saying, what inflation? The economy is in the best place in the world. When no, it's not. You look into all these metrics and you say, these things are looking great. But if you actually dig into them, they're not looking great. They're not good at all. But it's just interesting, again, to see the difference between people who have tons of money, who don't need to think about inflation, and everybody else who is affected by this actually month to month. That's going to do it for this video. As always, don't forget to smash that button and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in my next